Hawaii.
Yeah, shaka.
She's been kicking ass at VoiceBox for the last 7 years, so tonight you're going to get to see a little bit of the magic.
Yes, I am trying to get it all together right now. Part of the magic involves connecting to the internet, and I'm having such difficulty. Once I get on the internet, then I'll be able to search for any song that comes to mind during the show tonight. But you know, this is what we love about it. It's spontaneous, it's in the moment. The pressure is on, it's real, but nobody really cares. They love it. It's like NASCAR, they come for the crashes. They literally don't care who wins, so it'll be fun.
Oh my God, I love this woman so much. We have so much in common. She lives around the block from me. We both have kids on the spectrum. We both have kids who are transgender. And it's like, how likely is that? But she's way cooler than me and way funnier than me.
I didn't get my first tattoo, I think, until I was like 41 or something.
Well, that's cool.
And then it just went from there.
So I just like to hang out with her. And she's our first guinea pig for a reality show that we're working on called Show and Tell. Yeah, so Show and Tell is going to be where we take one storyteller and we polish up their story and then we give them a little bit of a makeover.
Can you see me?
Yeah, perfect.
Do I have a double chin?
You? Nobody's looking at your chin.
Yeah.
Joan, what did you think I meant?
I don't know, but it sounded like a sexist comment.
Oh, I took it as like, no one cares about your face.
Joan was on track.
And give them a little fashion, fachatch, as our fashion stylist says. Fachatch. You know who's our fashion stylist is? Jody Murphy. She speaks her own vocabulary. So we fachatched her. And she's actually rocking another woman here who is an amazing artist, Maur. Yeah, she designed these beautiful scarves from her original artwork, and Joan's going to be wearing one tonight, and so she's beautiful from the inside out.
Joan, how do you feel about telling your story tonight?
I feel pretty good, a little nervous. Once I'm up there, I feel okay, but getting there, up to that point, I always feel nervous.
So did you already do your makeup sometimes, or?
I used to always have my makeup done, my hair done, and then just, over the years dealing with my son, I don't have a lot of time. And I just kind of gave up on a lot of stuff. So, since you doing my makeup the other day, it was like, wow, I'm like, I forgot how much I'd like to
feel good.
Right, if you spend a few extra minutes. And he's, my son's at a point now where I can spend some extra time.
So, Joan, I know you rehearsed your story the other day. Did you have any breakthroughs since then?
I feel like kind of by putting it on paper and then telling it out loud to people kind of normalizes it a little bit for me. That the whole experience, if that makes sense. And makes me a little less worried about talking about it, I guess.
Is it healing to talk about it?
Yes, very much so.
All right, so just stick your hand in the middle here, right into the middle. We're just gonna make a little hub of a wheel that keeps on turning. And we just thank the goddess of rock for bringing us all together. And tonight is gonna rock, your storytelling is gonna rock. The audience will be transformed by your words and your stories, your feelings, and being able to witness your humanity and from all of us, and letting us see the giant psychedelic web that brings us all together into this circle. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, goddess. All right, you feel ready? Okay.
Inside out, please welcome out Joan Llewellyn Burns.
In the spring of last year, I found myself sitting in the day room of the psych ward. Well, I shouldn't say I just found myself there. It's not the same as I found myself eating the entire bag of potato chips, or I found myself staying up to 3 in the morning binging Stranger Things, or I found myself stalking people on the internet. I found myself there because I drove myself to the emergency room and I told them how I was feeling. And I was feeling like utter shit. It's kind of hard to put it into words, but I felt like a shell that I had no insides. I couldn't do the routine tasks that make up the everyday. I kind of felt like a pumpkin whose insides had been scraped out and discarded, with a face carved like the happy jack-o'-lantern, trying to look fine and happy on the outside, while empty and raw on the inside. This wasn't my first go-around with dark thoughts and longing for death. The darkness has been a part of me for as long as I can remember. But the dark thoughts coupled with the intense physical symptoms was new, and I knew that I needed help, and I needed it immediately. Otherwise, this darkness surely would eat me alive. So off I went to the ER at Elmhurst Hospital on a Monday evening. It was kind of a surreal experience. I told the nurse how I was feeling, and she led me to a room and had me put on a gown, which was kind of weird. It's up here, that's where the problem is. But I just did what she said and I put on the gown. So a security guard showed up, and he had me sign a form, and he took away all of my belongings except my phone and locked them up. And I thought that was kind of weird. I've been to the ER before and they never did that. And he kind of watched me with that kind of wary look that people who deal with people who are maybe a little unhinged look, like waiting for me to make a sudden move. But he didn't know I was just too tired to move at all. And it was interesting because it wasn't the usual kind of emergency room where there's like those little weird drape dividers between the beds. This was like a solid 4-walled room with that, security glass window and a door. And next, the security guard got out a key and he lowered this metal gate down all the equipment in the room. You know, like those metal gates that go over stores at night to keep them safe. And I didn't say anything, but I was like, what the fuck is going on in here? I just watched him, he kind of watched me. So then the security guard came back one more time and he took the chairs out, which got me thinking, do they think I'm going to kill myself with a chair? And if I was, how would I do it? So I put my head between the seat and the arm and swing it around? Would I stand on the seat and plunge myself 24 inches to my death? I could not figure out an answer. I still don't know. Next, the social worker showed up. She was a kind lady. She was maybe in her 60s with gray curly hair and glasses. But by this time, I was starting to panic. So I told her, I'm all better now. I'm ready to go home. And she kind of was like, no, I don't think so. I'm not going to release you. And I said, well, how about sending me to one of those outpatient programs for depression? I'll do that. But evidently her bullshit meter was pretty good because she knew I would never go. And she said no. And that was the moment that I realized why they take away your purse, your clothes. It's not easy just to walk out of the hospital in a gown with no keys, no money, no shoes. I was stuck. And so the time just ticked on so slowly, and the social worker spent her time trying to find an open bed in a psych ward. My panic level just raised to unbearable. I was on the phone with my sisters and my best friend, Bonnie, and I just watched my phone battery, just going lower and lower and lower. They didn't have any chargers there, so I was worried that I would be cut off. And I really just wanted to leave, but I knew I couldn't. I was feeling hideous inside, and I knew I needed that help, even though I was terrified. So I hadn't eaten in hours, so I asked for something to eat, and they brought in the saddest sandwich I've ever seen in my life. I told them, well, I have celiac disease and I'm a vegetarian. I can't really eat that. And they were like, that's all we got. So I just sat there as the hours passed and picked off every little tiny bit of white bread crumbs off the rubbery turkey. Finally took a few bites. And then eventually she came back and said that she found a bed at Good Samaritan Hospital and an ambulance would take me over there. I was thrilled. So gowned and shoeless, I was put on a gurney and rolled out to the ambulance. The paramedic asked for more information, more paperwork, and I just sat there, just trying to breathe away the panic as we drove through the night. I arrived at the hospital about 3 in the morning. And no, there isn't a sign that says, welcome to the psych ward. You have officially lost your shit. But I think it would be a nice touch. And no, it's not like one flew over the cuckoo's nest and there was no Nurse Ratched to greet me. Looked like just any old regular hospital floor. And the nurses were actually really nice and caring. There was more intake forms, more talking about how I was feeling, and then something new. The nurses took me into a room, had me remove my gown, lower my underwear, squat, and cough. That was unexpected. Let's just say there hasn't been anything in my hoo-ha for a very long time. I do not know what they were expecting to find. Maybe some contraband of some sort, but had I known, I would have shoved a Diet Coke up there. Because there was no Diet Coke on that unit anywhere. So make a note. So the next thing the nurses do is write down the location of any tattoos, marks, bruises, and I was like, why are they doing that? You know, are psych ward tattoos a thing? You know, like when you go to prison, you get your prison tat, you know, but I guess they just have to write it all down. So I shared a room with a woman who was about my age. This was not her first rodeo, so she showed me the ins and outs of the place. I had finally gotten into my room about 3:30 in the morning, so I didn't actually meet her until the following morning, but I almost woke her up when I exhaustedly sat down on the toilet to pee, and I almost screamed. It was ice cold because the toilet is solid metal. You know, I kind of thought again about the prison theme was running through, and I'm like, this must be what the prison toilets look like. There are no removable pieces. And then I started looking around, and I noticed that there was no removable pieces anywhere on the unit. They didn't want you hurting yourself on their watch. In the morning, my roommate told me that that toilet was so cold, it scares the pee right back up into you. And she was right. Cold toilets aside, the unit was very clean and the staff was very kind and caring. But the beds, they were a trip. No exaggeration, the beds were like a thin mattress on top of a pine box. Why the pine box? I mean, if you croaked off there, did they just like roll you in the box and cart you off to the cemetery, save a few steps? I don't know, I didn't figure that one out either. So if you haven't had the pleasure of being locked up, I'll tell you a little bit about the routine. Someone would wake me up for breakfast, and I would shuffle down the hall to where we would get our meals. And I would shuffle because, of course, they take away your shoes, and they give you those ugly-ass, no-slip hospital socks. And that's what you pretty much wore the whole time. After breakfast, we had a 30-minute period where you could go to the grooming room, and you could, you know, do your hair, put on your makeup, but I was like, fuck that, I'm not here to look pretty. So, and it probably would have been impossible at that point because I was just rocking this god-awful botched haircut, and I think maybe that's why I was depressed in the first place. It was bad. So my grooming consisted of a shower and brushing my teeth, which, by the way, was noted. Did I tell you that everything you do is written down? When I learned this, you know, I was a little freaked out. They take note of your mood, what you are doing, if you are participating, did you shower, did you eat, etc., etc., etc. You know, and I understand this is how they keep track of people and everything that was going on, but it was a little unsettling. The unit was filled with people of every age, from 18 to their 70s, and they were regular, everyday people struggling with depression or bipolar or another mental illness, and they just needed some extra support like I did. I often wonder about a young man that I met there. He looked like the gutted pumpkin that I felt like. He had suffered unspeakable trauma as a child, and it seemed as though the weight of his despair would crush him. I often wonder if he's still walking the land of the living with us. I hope he is. We had group therapy all day long and after dinner too. Some people chose not to go, but I went to every one. I wanted so desperately to be rid of this awful feeling that had sunk deep into my bones. Many of the patients were so eager to get out. Me, no, I wasn't. I was fine. I stayed there 6 days, which is longer than the typical stay. I had some difficulty with some medications, but the social worker, she said, I'm not letting you out of here until you have some better supports for your child with autism. My ex, he was gonna have to step up, like it or not. You see, my son with autism hadn't slept in 16 years, and neither had I. And I bet if you didn't sleep in 16 years, you'd be batshit crazy too. So I was kind of happy there because I was actually sleeping at night. So that was a good thing. When I finally was sprung, it was kind of really strange to be home. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself. I entered what they call PHP, or partial hospitalization program. It's kind of like going to a job every day, but the job was getting better. You know, I wish I could say that this last year and a half has been smooth sailing, but it hasn't. I have bottomed out and I've struggled, but I've learned how to better manage this disease called depression. I've learned how to actually take care of myself instead of just everyone else. And most importantly, I've learned how to say no and how to ask for help. As you know, there's terrible shame that comes along with a mental illness. In the hospital, they said, don't tell anyone where you've been. We'll give you a letter from the doctor. Doesn't tell you why you were in the hospital. They know how people are treated after being hospitalized. And our friends and family also want to keep our secret too. They don't want to tell anyone about our shame. So no one participates in like coordinating meals for the family like they would if I was in the hospital for a physical ailment. And you know what, I say, fuck that. I am not ashamed. And I will not be shamed into silence. And I understand this can be uncomfortable. It's a topic that's uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about. So if you don't know how to talk to me or don't want to say the wrong thing, just come and talk to me, just like you always have. Ask me questions. This illness thrives in silence and darkness, and I do not want to let it grow. I believe that being in the psych ward was part of my transformation. The phoenix rising from the ashes, reaching for that higher ground. I hit my bottom and I had to change my life to save my life. And I'm so glad I did.
Joan Burns. I actually have a song about being in the psych ward, as luck would have it. And this was, I wrote this based on a book that a friend of mine wrote, Bob Samola, or Robert Samola, and the book is called A Waltz Through La La Land. I wrote this song based on his book. We've had to strap you down so you won't hurt yourself. Don't you know we're only here to help? Welcome to La La Land. Make yourself at home. Hide your head underneath the covers. You're a danger to yourself and others. Welcome to La La Land. Have a pleasant stay. Don't make it too complicated. Don't you know reality is overrated? La 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 la. See, you're having trouble talking. We must adjust the meds. We're still experimenting. We haven't figured out the proper dosage yet. Please don't be alarmed by the man shitting on the floor. He's really so much better. If you think he's crazy now, you should have seen him before. Yeah.